What's up, everybody? Today, I wanted to do a little video. Um, you ever wonder why presidential races have been so close? I was thinking that to myself, right? And then it's like, how really did Hillary actually lose to Trump, right? And Trump seems so stupid, right? And you think about W. Bush. He's just, I don't know if y'all remember Baby Bush Jr. Fool me once, can't get fooled again. Yeah, stuff like that, right? How are the Democrats losing to these candidates? So I decided to go down a little rabbit hole myself and think about and just kind of like examine and talk about why that might be. All right. So I got my notes. I got a couple of little notes and stuff like that on here. A little notes over here. So first off, I always have to preface this because if you say anything that could be, I don't know, could admonish the Democrats in any type of way or whatever like that, people just automatically think you Republican, you for Trump. Absolutely not. I am not a Republican. I could never be a Republican. I am a black leftist in the ilk of the Black Panthers and Stokely Carmichael and James Baldwin and the real philosophies of Martin Luther King, or excuse me, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Like, I could never, ever vote for the current Republicans as they are right now. I would never vote for a dude like Trump. He's a rapist, racist. I probably should cut that out, but oh well, we'll edit it and post it, whatever. Anyway, so I just have to preface that. No, I'm not telling you like go vote, Trump, put some money in our pockets because he gave us some stimmies. So I'm going to vote for Trump because that's what, no, I'm not going to do that. But I do think we need to authentically and honestly examine what the hell is going on with these elections. Right now, it's neck and neck. I cannot believe how close it is between Kamala and Trump. On one hand, you have a candidate like Kamala, who I'm not voting for, who I don't really think is progressive, who is just another representation of the establishment, just like we've had. There's no different from Bill Clinton. War is going to happen. Capitalism is going to run rampant and exploit everybody, continue to oppress everyone. All these things are going to continue to go just as normal under a presidency of her. That being said, I'd rather have to deal with her than deal with Trump. That being said, Kamala is more qualified. I mean, Trump is a very low bar. At least she got some experience in the Senate, public service, something. It just seems like I can continue to fight the power, but feel less urgent, I guess. I don't know. I think the urgency needs to be there. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, I'd rather deal with Kamala. Still not voting for her, but rather deal with Kamala. And with Trump and all these rallies, all the stuff that he's saying, all the bigotry and racism, all the buffoonery, all of this stuff is just ridiculous. I can't imagine, how can you be so close in a race? Or like the polls are saying, I don't know how much you can believe the polls, but how could you potentially be losing to this candidate? Well, in my little research, in my little notes, I had to take it back, right? And examine kind of like all the presidential candidates. And, I went back a few decades or so, but I had to start with the first black president. Yeah, that's right. No, not Barack Obama. I'm talking about the real first black president. I'm talking about Bill Clinton, y'all. Yeah, y'all thought I forgot. I remember. See, Born in the 80s. You know, the first Bush was the first president I remember. But I was old enough to remember Bill Clinton. He was on Arsenio Hall, and I remember my parents and the other black adults around me. They were so excited because we were gonna have a black president. Oh yeah, Bill Clinton was on Arsenio Hall. He had his saxophone and everything like that, and he was cool. He even had a little, there was a rumor that he smoked a little weed. You know what I'm saying? And went by the name Slick Willie. Now, if that's not black, I can't tell you what is. I'm being facetious. At the same time, what that represented was kind of like this new cool character, right? He was embracing this certain cultural coolness or cultural capital amongst, the black community at least, that hadn't necessarily been reached before. It was something that was always interesting to me, and weird even then. Sorry, y'all. I'm coughing, whatever. And it was something new. Upon a further examination, right? Actually, you know what? Could we say Bill Clinton was the first official invite to the cookout? Is that a possibility? But I digress. This cool capital and our cultural capital that he kind of was, whether intentional or unintentional, was very hollow. His policies as he became president were the same, if not continued the current downslide of all of the statistical monikers of what a thriving community should be, and though that downslide continued in the African American community. So there's multiple things, right? We think about the 95 crime bill, the 3 strikes law, right? How many black and brown families, right, were impacted? How many dads were out of the homes? How many children were born in a prison because of a system that perpetually fed the prison industrial complex, right? Where these prisons get paid, right? The more people they have in jails, the more money they get. It's for profit, right? The destruction of the support that children being raised in homes need. The economic impact that has when you take a parent out of the home, especially a father out of the home. Because let's keep it real, there's, especially back then, there's still was a lot of gender pay discrimination, right? Women got paid less, and women still do get paid less. And as wrong as that is the reality and was the reality. So he kind of just continued the same structure, but it felt better. Glass-Steagall was one of the things, right? Glass-Steagall was an act in the Great Depression. Y'all can look it up. I don't want y'all to be lazy. Y'all thinkers. Y'all thinkers, okay? But look up Glass-Steagall. It was a act that happened in the Great Depression, right? That separated the money that you can use in banks, or the money that banks could use, right? So if you deposited your money in a regular checking account, then your money was off limits, right? If it was a savings account, your money was off limits to speculation or using it for the stock market, right? You would have to put it in either some sort of certificate deposit, CD maybe. You would have to put it in a money market account, some type of investing account, designated investing account, for them to be able to take that money and use that money and play the little gambling games on the stock market, right? They made that because of how rampant it got after the Great Depression in like the 1930s, right? And we came up out of that 40s, 50s, something like that. Well, he decided to repeal that act, therefore allowing the casino that is now our banking system to unleash its oppression monetarily on everything in sight. That led to the .com bubble. That led to the real estate bubble. That led to multiple recessions that hurt everyday people like you and me, but made these fat cats much richer. So okay, that was okay. Slick Willie, all right, cool. Bill Clinton doing his thing. And then I thought about, well, he was such a popular president. How did Al Gore lose? Now, I'm old enough to that Al Gore was the first president I ever voted for, and that's the first election I was eligible to vote for. And I remember doing all these things. I was in transition from my senior year of high school to my freshman year on the campus of University of Oregon. That time is a pivotal time when you leave high school. You're trying to find yourself. You're trying to figure out what the world really is. This was my opportunity to actually figure those things out. And in that, this really provided a opportunity to dive deep into the political realms. I was fairly invested in Al Gore against George W. Bush and continuing that political monarchy, and thoroughly against it, but somehow he lost. Now, when I look back, I know about how it was partially stolen, right? The Supreme Court stopped the recount in Florida. Essentially, when he also won the popular vote still, but didn't win the Electoral College, which we know the Electoral College stems from slavery, is anti-democratic. Look it up, do the research, y'all my thinkers. But that kind of was also, upon looking back, I wanted to kind of just see what was the word when it came to why Al Gore lost. Because even if he lost from that state, why would W be such a force, or why would Al Gore be not such a force to where it was that close in the first place, to where an election could be stolen by one state? So I did my research. And honestly, it seemed like, I messed up. There was also a shift when it came to Clinton. Clinton was one of the first presidents to first Democratic presidential candidates to actually begin embracing large money, the political action committees, and doing what they could for the donor class and out fundraising Republicans in order to win an election. That fundraising and the money given to the Democrats and his presidential candidacy the favor was returned when it comes to things like Glass-Steagall and other large economic business and moneyed interests. Back to Al Gore. Al Gore was the start of what I like to call the weak candidate. He seemed to be a candidate that was, one, I guess he was the vice president, so he's next in line. Okay, cool. But he refused to run on strong policies that were people focused as opposed to the donors, right? The same stuff that we're still talking about today. War, right? And getting out of wars and dismantling the military industrial complex that is burning a hole in America's pocket. Not to mention just morally and categorically spreading oppression, death, harm, and suffering all over the world. Healthcare for all, right? Single payer healthcare. This is something that we're still talking about today, right? Stuff that impacts the everyday life and the structural lives of ours, or stuff that represents structural change, an actual change to our system that really impacts people every day. That's the type of stuff, right? He refused to run on those policies. He didn't. He wanted to play the middle. Again, we have these new relationships with these donors. So the Democratic Party in general is presenting these candidates that try to play the line, right? They want to make you feel good. Climate change is really important, but we're still invested in oil, right? In the case of Al Gore, right, who at least became a climate advocate, I would say, climate change advocate. I don't know how you want to call it, but anyway, with that being said, he was a weak candidate. John Kerry lost in his own state. The statistics of you winning the presidency and not winning your own state is very, very low. And he lost his state, his own home state of Tennessee. He, again, not as much energy behind Al Gore, wasn't as cool. I implore you again, y'all my thinkers. Y'all think. Don't listen to me. Research it yourself. Just Google the question. Why did Al Gore lose, right? Absolutely look at the Supreme Court stuff, the Florida vote, the Attorney General in Florida that purged the votes, and like 97% of the people who were purged should have still been on the ballot. Absolutely. We need to look at that too, but we need to look in addition, like we need to look outside of that as well. So expand your mind. Do your thinking. Don't let nobody just tell you stuff. Don't be a sheep. Don't be a pig at the trough ready for the slop and just eating it all up. Decide for yourself. Research for yourself. Anyway. Cool. We have Gore lost, right? We got George Bush. W. Bush. Okay, cool. I'm just going to skip John Kerry. Bush was talking to him all kinds of crazy, but that's here nor there. Well, what do you think our next Democratic presidential candidate is? None other than the actual first black president, Barack Obama. All right? Now, what does this mean to present a candidate, especially a black candidate, for the Democratic Party? Again, they harken back to the cultural capital. There's so much symbolism behind having a black presidential candidate, but also so much symbolism and feel-goodness behind people, black or otherwise, voting for a black candidate. They doubled down on the cultural capital. They just did. When it comes to, Barack Obama is charismatic. He's cool. He's a great orator, great speaker. He got the black handshakes and stuff. He spent a lot of time in the South Side of Chicago. That's just what it is, right? So, again, the fervor around the symbolism, right? But we have a black face in a white space. A black shell housing all the same white supremacist, capitalistic, colonial structure. Once Barack Obama became president, which was a presidency, again, I voted for Barack Obama. I was telling my son about this, last month, about how when I cried when Barack Obama and it was inaugurated. And I was telling him and trying to do my best. He's an 8th grader. He's 13. He's old enough to kind of understand stuff. But I was trying to do my best to explain to him that the idea of having a black person in office was literally unfathomable. Unthought of. Right? It was unthought of. My grandparents, directly from Mississippi, whose grandparents were enslaved and a part of the institution of slavery. My grandparents who picked cottons in the fields in Mississippi, they could not fathom the idea of actually having a black man up there. It was a barrier that was broken, and it was a barrier that really meant a lot to me, especially on a campaign running on hope and change. I was really, really inspired and hopeful when it came to a Barack Obama candidacy. But boy, oh boy, was I disappointed. Obama. Again, Obama carried out the same colonial, white supremacist, capitalist, oppressive systems, militaristic, oppressive systems that had been going on since the inception of this country. Drone strikes increased. The escalation in wars increased. More troops in Afghanistan and the two wars that we were in. Wars. The strengthening of the Patriot Act. Being able to invade our privacy, right? Without any type of rule of law or anything like that. Healthcare. One of the first issues he did on healthcare was healthcare, and I believe personally he argued from a very weak position, a very, very weak position. Most of the work that he did and the solutions that we finally got were more advantageous to the insurance companies instead of the everyday people who actually needed it. There was no systematic change that really happened when it came to Obamacare in our medical system, because people are still going bankrupt, and it's always one of the highest reasons that people go bankrupt in this country year in and year out. There's little structural change, and the change that was done wasn't done in a way that would actually prevent the deterioration which would happen in Republican governments. He had both the House and the Senate Democrats during his first term. Maybe not the whole thing, but during his first term. And what did he do with that? Where was I don't know, any structural change? Where was he on healthcare? Where was he on banking? The housing crisis of 2008 hit, and I was actually working in banks. His fix was to bail out the big banks. I know too many people and saw people, homes be foreclosed on, while these banks were allowed to not feel a mark, to not feel any pain. They were bailed out, given trillions of dollars. Trillions on dollars. What did he do on student loan debt? What was there done? I mean, and of course, when I'm talking about these people, I'm not saying that there's nothing, absolutely nothing that he did. There's nothing that he did for everyday people. The Lilly Ledbetter Act with equal pay, even though there's still discrimination. That's something that was good that he used as far as his bully pulpit and executive orders. But outside of that, what real structural change did he provide? The people up top and the status quo continued to fill their pockets, and everyday people found themselves in situations where it was just harder and harder to live. But Obama won both his terms under the guise that he was a black president. And because he was a black president, he was our hope. He was the best thing they could offer. After his second term, what they do? They doubled down on the social capital. They said, this time, let's pick a woman. Well, okay, you pick Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, who has been a public servant, has been a part of, the government for so long, right? And because the Democrats won with identity politics with Obama, I guess they figured they would try again, right? Again, virtue signaling, and not representing the structural change that will actually make a difference in people's everyday lives. She ran a weak ass campaign. We gotta be honest, y'all. She did. She did not have a state stolen like Al Gore with Florida. Trump came in talking all types of crazy, ran on racism, and won on racism. But again, what type of campaign did she run? Well, she ran a campaign that was anti-Trump instead of being pro these changes, these structural changes that I'm talking about that really impact the people. She, instead of running on these things, just fear-mongered Trump. He was the antichrist, the whatever you want to do. But that was her campaign. She didn't focus on key states like Michigan, where she didn't even campaign in. That's one of a swing state that's always needed during an election by either Republican or Democratic candidates. She didn't either. She continued. She took the same weak stances that didn't create any structural change, and the same weak stances they've been taking since the 90s. But she was in a new package. They had a new boogeyman, and they thought it would work because they would be able to play the fence and still appease their donors. Well, the donors didn't care that much if it was Hillary or Trump. Therefore, even without funding and losing, outfunding the Republicans and Trump himself, and also even with winning the popular vote, they still lost. They ran a weak campaign. Next, you have who? Right? Joe Biden. With Joe Biden, they abandoned the virtue signaling, the identity, and they wanted the safest bet. Right? Oh, let's go back a little bit. I got my notes, right? Because there were a couple of things, right? When it came to Hillary, there was a new thorn in the Democratic Party side that really made it really tough. His name is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders created an environment where she couldn't run from the progressive issues. A lot of times these issues are drowned out. People are not talking about them. But Bernie and the energy, the grassroots energy that he created from a base, put things in the forefront. The Green New Deal, Medicare for all, shrinking the military. She couldn't just hide behind Trump. Maybe, just maybe, she could have hid behind Trump. But that thorn in the Democratic Party side. Well, they did all they could, and there was a lot of things behind the scenes that a lot of powers that be that essentially finagled Bernie out of the picture. She won the presidential nomination, but ultimately lost the presidential race. Trump is in office for 4 years. Well, what do we need to do? We got to get back power, is what the Democrats said. So they abandoned everything, they jumped ship, and they went to Joe Biden, who is yet again another weak ass candidate. I say he's a weak candidate because this would be the third or the fourth time that Joe Biden has ran for president. Joe Biden actually lost to Hillary Clinton in the presidential and the Democratic primaries the election cycle before. But Joe Biden had a name, Joe Biden was vice president, and Joe Biden was a sure thing. Joe Biden was the perfect person that they could have voters run to, and to the comfort of his arms from the craziness of the Trump years. That's what they did. But there goes that thorn again. Bernie bringing up those damn issues. Medicare for all. Ending the wars. Ending billionaires. Making billionaires pay their fair share of taxes. All these things. Green New Deal. All these things. Loud and clear. All these policies, loud and clear, that Joe Biden didn't represent. And of course, they did what they could to kind of finagle and fool people into thinking that he was going to do something, that he could be the most progressive president since FDR. All right, cool, whatever. Well, comes to find out, Bernie wins the first couple of states. And what happened was they couldn't have it. So what happened? Obama pressed his thumb on the scales, calls all the other candidates. They all drop out before South Carolina to, get like transportation department, like Mayor Pete, and get different cabinet positions. And they all endorse Joe Biden. Joe Biden goes on to win South Carolina. And then Bernie is kind of forced out. So, again, sacrificing structural change to get back to some sort of norm by that President Trump, that even sounds bad in my mouth, but President Trump could not do. All right, cool. What have we learned? Because now we have presidential candidate Kamala Harris. That's where that leads us. And now we ask ourselves, why is this race so close? Why, with people like W, as I like to call them, W. Bush and Trump, people who are not of the highest intelligence, who are not of the highest morality, don't even seem to be actually serious about public service more than serving themselves. How do we find ourselves in this position? Well, I'll talk about, and it'll probably be a shorter video, but check out and be on for my next video, because Kamala is yet another weak candidate, and I'll explain why. Anyway, thinkers, I need you to like, share, do all that, you know what I'm saying, whatever it is, press all them buttons, subscribe, notifications, blah, blah, blah. I've been going a while, so if you've been here with me since all this time, where we at? I don't know, we on sometime. Oh yeah, it's a long video, it's cool. But if you've been here with me for this long, definitely go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, check me out. I'm gonna get more consistent. This has been Donnie Chocolate, Barbershop Professor. Peace.